This is Toni's story, who dreams of boxing. Unfair decisions early on hold her back, but a chance encounter with a stranger changes everything. The film begins with Toni, who is impatiently tapping her feet while waiting for Payne to get ready. Payne is a boxer whom Toni represents. Payne's match is about to start, so people have been waiting outside. Here, Granny Rita is giving Payne a massage while Toni encourages him to deliver a good performance before leaving. After this, an 8-year-old flashback is shown where a tomboy personality Toni is seen sitting frustrated and angrily removes and breaks her headset. Then, she's seen sitting in a public place, takes out her phone from her bag, and texts Darius. In front of her, street artists are performing, which makes Toni relax a bit. She then leaves for the bus station. Getting off the bus, she walks into a street where she eats pizza and enters a house by opening the front door. The house has a ring set up, a punching bag, and posters, indicating it's a boxing practice hall, gym, or perhaps Toni's home. Blues music is playing loudly. Toni begins to inspect the equipment around her. Meanwhile, Payne is shown boxing in the ring. Toni stands beside the ring when a strange man appears from behind. Toni is swaying to the blues music when it suddenly stops. Payne also stops. Toni turns around to see a man approaching her with a stick. It's revealed that this place belongs to a man named Elliot. Toni is startled by Elliot's sudden arrival. Elliot doesn't like Toni's sudden presence in his place and asks her for her bag to check, as he suspects she might have entered with ill intentions. Toni throws her bag at Elliot, who checks it and finds only Toni's shoes and other belongings. Toni feels a bit embarrassed since she entered Elliot's home without permission. She asks Elliot if she looks like some kind of thief. Elliot replies that everyone is like that, but the problem is that nobody looks like that. Then Toni explains her intention, which is to practice boxing. The two exchange introductions. Meanwhile, in the present, we see Toni watching Payne's boxing match on screen looking quite stressed. On the other hand, Toni is seen cleaning the gym because she has convinced Elliot to let her stay here. Elliot is no ordinary person, but an excellent coach who has trained several top-notch boxers, which Toni mentions to the coach. According to Elliot, accuracy and precision are crucial for a top-notch boxer. As soon as Toni mentions Akeem's name, Elliot realizes that he has met her before in the park. And that's true because Toni was a fan of Akeem's, so they had met before. Meanwhile, the present scene shows Toni texting Darius, worried about her daughter's well-being, as she is present at the match herself. On the screen, Payne's tough performance is ongoing. Toni mentions top boxers to Coach Elliot, brings up Ali, and even mimics him. Elliot smiles, calling Ali a sick machine after watching Toni's acting. Toni already knows Coach Elliot from an obscure boxing YouTube channel where she had seen him. She wants Coach Elliot to train her for boxing. When she offers to pay him, Coach Elliot gets angry, saying it's not about the money. However, for some reason, Elliot doesn't want Toni to become a boxer. Toni thinks it's because she's German that the coach doesn't want to train her. In the present, Toni walks out of the room, and another flashback from the past is shown. Payne is seen waiting for Toni, as her assistant had scheduled a meeting between them without Toni's knowledge. At that moment, Toni is pregnant and doesn't want to meet Payne, so she tries to leave. Payne gets angry because he needs to talk to Toni at all costs. Toni ignores Payne and gets into her car. Payne tries to get in, but Toni's assistant tries to stop him, and Payne punches him, knocking him to the ground. Then Toni gets into her car and drives away, but we see that Payne is also present in the car. At one point, Toni stops the car and talks to Payne, saying that he's the kind of person who can't even wait for a minute and lacks discipline. Meanwhile, Payne thinks Toni doesn't want to sign him because he's black. Oh, how insecure he is. Then he gets out of the car. Another flashback from the past is shown, where Toni visits Coach Elliot's gym. When she's trying to convince Elliot to train her, as we saw Payne insist later, Coach Elliot says Toni has all the qualities necessary to become a trained boxer. Then Toni, eager to show off her skills, some butt as she ready to punch Elliot, she ends up falling herself. Coach Elliot encourages Toni, then offers his hand to help her up. Toni's motivation to become a boxer is to prove that no one can mess with her. For Coach Elliot, boxing is not just about winning or scoring. It's about earning respect and recognition in the country. Even now, Elliot wants Toni to leave and not get involved in boxing. But Toni is determined to become a boxer to prove to her father that she's not just his daughter, but a skilled girl. In the present, Toni is extremely worried about her daughter, who has a fever. She repeatedly calls Darius to ask about her daughter's condition and provides instructions on medication and consulting a doctor. She also asks Darius to inform her when her daughter falls asleep. After this, we see Toni getting ready for her boxing practice. Elliot asks her if she thinks he can hurt a woman. Toni responds with the same answer Elliot gave her earlier when she asked if she looked like a thief. Everybody is like that, but nobody looks like that. Elliot then examines Toni's shoes, and Toni happily tells him that they're her size 6.5 or 7. Elliot hands Toni the locker keys and tells her to get size 7 shoes from the locker. Toni takes the keys, opens the locker, and finds it packed with footwear. She then picks up size 7 shoes, which are actually dance shoes, following Elliot's instructions. Lately, Toni has been watching Payne on screen with concern. In the past, Coach Elliot explains 3 rules to Toni: attitude, habitude, and gratitude. Then he tells Toni to wear leather shoes, which are actually dance shoes, indicating that she's not taking the boxing training seriously. Since it's Coach Elliot's territory, his rules apply, meaning Toni can't argue or question anything. Coach Elliot holds up a magazine with Buddy Guy's poster, who's the singer of the song Blue. Coach Elliot asked Toni to wear those boots to see her dancing moves, implying he's trying every possible way to discourage Toni from becoming a boxer. Toni asks the coach to show her boxing moves, including push-ups and more, as she's not just a party or club dancer type girl. Then Elliot tells Toni to leave, and he heads to his office. From behind, Toni starts playing music and dancing, which Elliot watches from his office. After dancing, Toni falls to the ground, and Elliot approaches her. After some conversation, Toni goes to take a shower and then prepares to leave. However, the coach stops her, saying she hasn't completed her dusting. Ironically, Toni was told to leave earlier, but now the coach is stopping her. Hearing this, Toni becomes happy because this is what she wanted. It seems Toni's dream of becoming a trained boxer is about to come true. Now, Elliot asks Toni about herself, and we learn that Toni is haunted by her past. She had lost a soccer game, but it's revealed that foul play was involved. Toni's team was about to win when a blonde girl from the opposing team hid the ball, angering Toni, who shouted at the girl and received a warning from the referee. The blonde girl then tripped Toni, causing her to fall hard on her knees, bleeding profusely, but no one noticed. Instead, Toni was accused of trying to push the opponent and was ejected from the game with a penalty. This is why Toni hates unfairness. Another flashback shows Toni walking with a limp due to an ankle injury with people teasing her. Toni confronts the teasing girl and punches her on the nose, causing it to bleed. After this, Payne is shown performing in the ring, watched by Toni on screen. Toni turns off the broadcast. In the past, after hearing Toni's determination, Elliot agrees to train her. Toni puts on her shoes again, but the coach tells her to train barefoot to connect her feet with the ground. Toni happily goes back to remove her shoes, but Elliot is surprised to see the messy room, thinking Toni would be neat and tidy. However, Toni is good at cleaning up after others, not herself. Then the two sit down and start conversing, revealing that Toni earned her first dollar at the age of 14 by selling a burger, and Elliot was involved in drug hustling in the past to support his family. After a while, Toni's training begins, starting with countless sit-stand exercises that eventually leave Toni's legs numb and she collapses from exhaustion. After a short break, Toni resumes her sit-stand exercises. Elliot advises Toni to always end standing. They both sit down and continue their conversation, while in the present, Payne's fight is shown. In the past, the coach tells Toni to enter the ring and gives her a safety helmet to wear. In the present, Payne is being introduced as the champion, and in the past, Coach Elliot begins Toni's training with balls. Elliot throws balls at Toni from different directions with both hands, which Toni must dodge. These balls resemble opponents. Meanwhile, Payne's fight is shown, and he's fighting in the ring just like Toni. During training, Toni successfully dodges multiple ball attacks, but eventually one ball hits her near the eyebrow on the forehead. Immediately, Coach Elliot provides Toni with aid, prioritizing his students' safety above all. In the present, Toni is on a call with Darius, asking him to stop their daughter from screeching, and also in the past, Toni is shown contacting Darius. Elliot asks Toni about Darius, and Toni starts praising him. Then Elliot tells her to leave, saying she performed well on her first day of training. Elliot appreciates Toni, making her feel like no one, not even Darius, has ever praised her before. As Darius wants Toni to stay with him, behave like a proper girl, wear girly clothes, and attend parties with him. Darius also has an issue with Toni's German accent. Meanwhile, Toni showcases her uppercut action and then calls Darius to pick her up, but Darius refuses to come. Toni again brings up Darius with Elliot, and a flashback shows a party where Toni is seen behaving casually. But as everyone enjoys the music, Toni starts feeling sleepy and loudly yawns, drawing awkward stares from others. This means Toni didn't often attend parties with Darius, and when she did, she only embarrassed him. During their conversation, a flashback from the day Toni officially introduced Payne to the media is shown. After the reporters leave, Philip teases Toni, questioning how she can trust Payne now. However, Toni reminds Philip of his manners and walks away. In the present, Toni calls Darius again to inquire about their daughter and reassure him that she'll spend the entire day with her family tomorrow, which is her priority. After the call ends, Toni becomes emotional, and the door knocks. Granny Rita enters, saying Payne needs Toni's encouragement, so Toni should go outside. Toni refuses, saying she can't handle it. Rita tries to convince Toni, even sharing about her 16-year-old granddaughter, who's extremely obsessed with Toni. If Payne loses, everyone will blame Toni for not supporting him properly. When that happens, Rita will bring her granddaughter to Toni's office, and Toni will have to answer to her, which won't be easy since she's just like Toni. Rita leaves, convincing Toni to encourage Payne once again. In the past, Toni's training resumes, where she's seen doing weightlifting, push-ups, punching, and various exercises. However, when it's time for pull-ups, Toni fails to do them properly despite Elliot's repeated instructions, leading Elliot to tell Toni to leave, causing an argument between them. In the present, Toni becomes frustrated, picks up a bowl of candies, and throws it on the floor. In the past, Toni packs her belongings in anger, and in the present, Toni starts picking up the scattered candies. Then, in the past, Toni cleans the room, then write almost on the board where it was written to leave the room as it was found. Toni sits on the rooftop smoking, and Elliot, seeing her, expresses concern about Darius not showing up, as Elliot doesn't want to leave Toni alone. Toni responds and joins Elliot, and they start conversing. During this, it's revealed that Coach Elliot was also hurt by his mother, a drug addict who prioritized her addiction over him, even sending him to jail. How cruel she was. Afterwards, Elliot takes Toni back to the gym where she starts bandaging her hand. Elliot notices that Toni's hand is injured because she punched to release her anger. Seeing this, Elliot advises Toni to always take special care of her hands, as a boxer's hands are crucial to their career and livelihood. After this, Toni puts on punching gloves and starts punching a punching bag, while Elliot continues to provide her with more training. As Elliot teaches Toni various moves, Payne is also seen using those same moves and dodge techniques in the ring. Next, Toni prepares to fight her coach in the ring, but the coach sits on a stool instead. In the present, Payne starts losing. In both the past and present, Toni urges her coach and Payne to get up. The coach becomes unconscious, and in the present, Toni removes her footwear and rushes barefooted towards the ring to support Payne so he doesn't lose. As Toni leaves, Darius calls to inform her that their daughter is fine, and it's better now that Toni has left for the ring. The movie ends here. Hence, Toni's journey showcases her determination to pursue boxing despite facing discouragement and unfairness. With Coach Elliott's guidance, Toni learns valuable lessons about perseverance, hard work, and self-respect. Ultimately, Toni's passion for boxing becomes a means to overcome her past and prove herself.